I had taken on a job to clean up an old abandoned house. It was the sort of place that had always given me the creeps, but I needed the money, and the initial fear had begun to fade as I spent more time there. After a few weeks of work, I started feeling like it was getting safer, and I even considered working late into the evening, thinking I was finally getting comfortable with the eerie surroundings. One evening, as darkness began to envelop the house, I decided to push my limits and continue my work late into the night. The only illumination came from my flashlight, casting long shadows in the nearly pitch-black rooms. The creaks and strange noises that had once terrified me now seemed like distant echoes of my imagination. As I scrubbed the dusty floors and cleared away the debris, I tried to focus on the task at hand. The only source of comfort was the hum of my electric generator, drowning out the uncanny silence that enveloped the house. I thought I had conquered my fear, believing that the place was no longer a place of nightmares. But then, when I least expected it, the horrifying encounter occurred. I heard the front door of the abandoned house swing open with a loud creak, and my heart leaped into my throat. I froze, my flashlight trembling in my hand as I turned toward the door. A man had barged into the house, his face twisted with anger, and his eyes locked onto me with an intensity that made me lose my breath. I stammered, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" But he didn't respond. His silence and the malevolence in his eyes made my heart race even faster. He advanced toward me with aggressive strides, and panic overcame me. I knew I had to defend myself. Desperation took over as I frantically searched for something, anything to use as a weapon. My eyes landed on a can of spray among my cleaning supplies. It was the only thing I could grab in the moment, and I clenched it tightly in my trembling hand. I aimed the can at the intruder, ready to spray him if he got any closer. "Stay back," I shouted, my voice trembling. The man seemed unrelenting, his eyes narrowing with an unsettling determination. I hesitated no longer. I unleashed a stream of spray at him, and it hit his face, causing him to sputter and retreat. The stinging spray created a brief opening for me to make my escape. Leaving behind all my cleaning equipment, I sprinted for the door, my heart pounding in my chest. Panic and fear consumed me as I fumbled to find my keys, which were my lifeline in this terrifying moment. I had always kept them on me in case something like this happened. I never thought anything like this would actually happen, but I'm glad my anxiety actually worked to my benefit. With the keys finally in my grasp, I flung the door open and stumbled out into the darkness, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Gasping for breath, I slammed the door shut behind me and locked it. I was safe. For now. I reached for my phone and called my husband, who was also cleaning just a few houses down. My voice quivering as I recounted the harrowing encounter that had just transpired. He rushed to pick me up, and I clung to the safety of his presence, my body still trembling from the terror I had experienced. My husband, angered, wanted to go inside and confront the man, but in my pure shock and fear, I did not want to see the man again. I told him that I just wanted to leave and go back to the safety of our own home. Aside from my husband going back the next morning to get the cleaning supplies, we never went back there. I called the person who had hired us to complain and say that we were not going back there. He went on to say that there have been a bit of issues with squatters in the past. I unprofessionally went off on him and told him that was something they should have disclosed before working at the property. I was in such shock that they wouldn't have disclosed that, and went on to report them to the Better Business Bureau. To this day, I will never work in an abandoned building again. When I was younger, I had a friend who lived in a trailer park. We had a tradition of playing a game called Manhunt. It was like a mix of tag and hide and seek, and it was my favorite place to play the game because there were plenty of kids around to play with. But most of our parents didn't want us playing it. They said it was too dangerous and we often trespassed through neighbors' yards. So we got creative with the truth and pretended to be at different friends' houses just so we could play. The trailer park was nestled in the middle of the city, surrounded by houses and businesses. On that particular day, it was my turn to hide, and there were about 8 of us playing. I decided to be a legend and find a hiding spot that was right in the middle of the playing field, but was so spooky that no one would dare to hide there. An old, abandoned house. This house had been empty for at least 5 years, and it looked like it was falling apart. It was a danger zone for anyone to be near it. But my 13-year-old self thought it was the perfect spot to win the game. We liked to start playing later in the day so we could begin in the daylight and end a few hours after sunset. I snuck into the abandoned house and settled down to wait. To be cautious, I set up a base on the main floor right between the front door and the back door. I didn't want to get caught off guard, and I needed an escape plan in case the other kids tried to get me. After about an hour of waiting in the eerie silence of the old house, I suddenly heard a door creak open from within. The sound echoed through the empty rooms and then it fell completely silent. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized I was not alone. Out of nowhere, I saw a head slowly peeking through a doorway. I couldn't make out his face clearly, but the man looked disheveled and appeared to be in his middle age. Fear froze me in place as our eyes locked, and then he let out a blood-curdling scream. It felt like he was coming after me. Terrified, I bolted and ran, hearing his footsteps closing in behind me. Panic coursed through my veins as I made it outside and lost him. I sprinted back to our base, and the other kids sitting around the fire hooted and hollered as they saw me coming. They were surprised that they hadn't been able to find me. Breathless, I told them about the man who had chased me from the old abandoned house. But to my shock, they yelled at me and said that the house was off limits, a rule that I was unaware of. Some kids decided to go home, frustrated, and only 4 of us remained, determined to check out the house. As we approached the abandoned building, we didn't see or hear anything unusual. My friends thought I was just seeing things or overreacting, and they chalked it up to someone possibly using the place for drug-related activities. To this day, I still don't know who that man was or what his intentions might have been. One Friday night, 3 of my friends and I, all about 16 at the time, decided to have some drinks at an abandoned school. We had scoped out the place beforehand and noticed an open door. The idea of exploring this eerie building had piqued our curiosity, and we couldn't resist the temptation. The day arrived and we entered the abandoned school with a sense of excitement mixed with a bit of apprehension. We started with a beer each, thinking we were alone in the dimly lit, musty hallway. The old lockers stood as old relics of the past, and broken windows let in the faint moonlight. As we chatted and laughed, the echoes of our voices bouncing off the decaying walls, I couldn't help but feel more on edge than usual. The place held an unsettling aura, like it was watching us, judging our intrusion into its solitude. Then it happened. A sound, like a high-pitched scraping across the floor, pierced through our conversation. We fell silent, and the life was sucked out of the room instantly. Fearful of being caught by security or anyone else and getting into trouble, we quickly hid our drinks and decided to peek into the hallway to see who else might be in the building. The hallway was dimly lit, with the only source of light coming from a single flickering bulb at the far end. We tiptoed closer to get a better view, and then our hearts sank. At the end of the hallway, we spotted about 6 figures. They were conversing in hushed tones, their voices just loud enough for us to hear but too indistinct to make out what they were saying. Panic began to bubble up within us. We couldn't make out their faces, and the sense of dread washed over us. Our initial excitement had turned into sheer terror. Looking at each other anxiously, we knew we needed to get out of there. The fear of the unknown was much stronger than any fear of getting in trouble with the authorities. We had no choice but to make our way back to the entrance and disappear into the night. We moved quietly, each step calculated to avoid making a sound. But as we carefully inched our way back down the hallway, disaster struck. With each cautious step, I accidentally crushed a piece of broken glass underfoot, creating a shattering noise that echoed through the hallway. It was as if time stood still. Our hearts raced and cold sweat dripped down our brows. The figures at the end of the hallway fell silent too, and for a moment, it seemed like they were frozen in time. Then from the darkness we heard a man yell, "Hey!" Panic surged through us like a tidal wave, and without hesitation, we sprinted for the exit. The fear of being caught by those unknown figures overwhelmed any fear of getting in trouble with the authorities. We ran like our lives depended on it, stumbling over debris and clattering through the darkness. The abandoned school became a place we would never visit again, and as time passed, the fear slowly faded. But the memory of that spine-tingling encounter remains etched in our minds. It was a night that none of us will ever forget. A night when the line between excitement and terror blurred into something we could never fully explain.